Hello and welcome everybody to this special webinar event, Journey from App Modernization to Modern Virtualization with Red Hat and Portworx. Today's exciting webinar is sponsored by Portworx, by Pure Storage, and produced by Actual Tech Media, with special guests from Red Hat and IDC. My name is Mackenzie Puddesy with Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this conversation today. The critical role of container data management in modernizing enterprise IT infrastructures is so important as we advance on our zero trust journeys and improve our security posture and data storage solutions with this technology. Joined today by industry experts, the conversation will touch on evolving market trends and the critical importance of container data management in today's digital landscape. This is going to be such a cool conversation, and I cannot wait to get started. So let's zip through the housekeeping and get things on our way. First, I want to draw your attention to the questions section of your webinar console. This is the best place to get involved, get interactive, and post all your insightful questions, comments, feedback, and ideas. We indeed do want to hear from you. So why don't you find that questions tab now, and let's start out by saying a quick hi, hello, hola, bonjour, or any greeting you'd like to share today, and give a wave to the community here with you today. As a quick side note, that window is also the best place to reach out and let us know if you have any technical issues during the session. Knock on wood, of course. But a browser refresh should get rid of the usual tech gremlins if you're having issues with audio or slides. Now, if not, just shoot a message in that questions tab and the Actual Tech Media crew, and I will be here to help. And the last thing I want to point out on your audience console is the handouts tab. Go check out some cool resources and follow-ups to our conversation today because it is just packed with great info. There are 5 resources there coming from Red Hat, Portworx, and IDC, which will be referenced and explored during today's presentation. You'll likely want to bookmark and download all of those handouts so you can take a deeper look after today's webinar. Okay, well, that is it for the housekeeping. We are ready to start our webinar. So please welcome to the stage Rajiv Thakkar, who is the head of product marketing over at Portworx by Pure Storage, Stu Miniman, who is the senior director of market insights at Red Hat, and Johnny Yu, research manager, storage computing at IDC. Rajiv, Stu, and Johnny are going to discuss today's topic in a roundtable style discussion. So let's get things rolling. We're going to have a quick video from Portworx that is going to start things off, and then Rajiv is going to take the lead on this discussion. So here we go. All right, everyone, let's dive in.
The underpinnings of the platform is what really helped. It helped Comcast save millions in operational cost. The system provided the ability to quickly identify issues that are long-running, as well as new issues that popped up. And that really helped to reduce that overall failure rate to under 1%.
Portworx with Pure has allowed us to reduce that, so that's 1 monthly upgrade on a single instance of the database and the application versus 50 previously. So that was typically about 400 man hours a month to do that upgrade, is now down to 4 hours a month. And it's starting to shrink because we're able to do it even faster.
We started Kubernetes, I think we started in our cloud native journey or transformation way back in 2017. Our Kubernetes journey was always tethered around stateful stuff. State has been an important part. Storage is the key integral part, and I think there's hardly anything we can do in Kubernetes without having storage, and that is what is brought us together. Still a lot of problems to solve, and hoping to actually make it simpler and easier for everybody going forward.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, based on where you are. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Rajiv Thakkar. I represent Portworx at Pure Storage, and I lead product marketing. I am joined by IDC's Johnny Yu and Red Hat's Stu Miniman. Johnny and Stu, why don't you folks introduce yourselves and also share a little bit about where you're dialing in from and how's the weather today?
Sure. I'll go first. So I'm Johnny Yu. I'm a research manager at IDC. I cover container data management and data protection and where those overlap, obviously. I am currently, it's a sunny morning here in Boston, and the heat wave's over, so this feels good.
Yeah, and hi, Stu Miniman. I'm a senior director at Red Hat. I'm part of what we call the hybrid platforms business unit, which includes things like OpenShift, OpenStack, our virtualization offerings. I'm also in the Boston area, and as we always say here, if you don't like the weather right now, just wait an hour or two; it'll change. So this time of year, you don't know whether you're wearing shorts or you're needing a light jacket. But yeah, love New England, and fall. I don't know about you, Johnny, but fall's one of my favorite times that we get into.
Yeah, same here, same here.
Likewise, so excited about the fall. And I am from the Bay Area and very excited to bring the sort of point of view from Pure and then jointly talk with Red Hat and IDC here. So thank you both for joining. Let's get right into the meat of this journey from app modernization to modern virtualization that all enterprises are going through, right, folks? And so I think we would, I think, be, incomplete from a pure storage perspective if it wasn't for the partnership with Red Hat. So Stu, really appreciate our collaboration and between the teams over the years. And Johnny, you have been so instrumental in sort of guiding us to build this new category, right? So, which is called container data management. And, for the audiences who are still new to this category, I would love for you to kind of actually talk about, hey, why did you build this marketscape? And, really get into the specifics of, what challenges did you see customers talk about, and what was the perspective there that IDC was bringing in your research to get this marketscape out there? So why don't you kick us off with that, please?
Yeah, for sure. So you're right that this is a new category for IDC and probably for some others as well, where we were trying to build a category that reflected the infrastructure and the background that's necessary to run containerized applications, but not include the what we would call container management tools themselves. So something like Kubernetes or like stuff that are commonly called orchestrators or schedulers. That's more on the DevOps side of things and responsible for like the timing of spinning up and spinning down your containers and applications and whatnot. We're talking more about the more administrative side of things, like making sure that the containerized applications have the resources that they need to run the compute, the storage, and all that. And then in addition, the stuff that admins would normally be responsible for and stuff that would keep them up at night. Like, is this do I have proper DR for these applications? Like when they go down, can they come back? Can I spin them back up again in an automated, failover, failback kind of way, or like, as hands-off as possible? Is access to this stuff secure? Is access to data, like, is the data itself protected? Is access to that also secured? So we're trying to capture that whole category. We're calling it container data and infrastructure management, just to kind of include that it's not just the data that we're worried about. And part of the reason that we came up with this category was an earlier study, so before that, what made us think that the marketscape was eventually necessary and the creation of this category was necessary was we had surveys telling us that we had pulled a bunch of companies that were running applications and containers, and more than 50% of the respondents said that they're thinking within the next 2 years of repatriating half of the work that they had already done. Basically, like they had containerized some legacy applications, and they were thinking of like rolling back half or more of what they had already done, because they were finding that by refactoring their legacy applications, things were too complicated to run now. they broke some of the processes, like some of the attached processes like data protection and security to the application. So it's, basically they lost some function while they were doing it. And security was actually the number one concern. And obviously everything I had said, all that was all linked back to that. So it really told a story of how, at least in the early days of container usage, and we're still technically in early days. Let's not dance around that. But especially in those early days, there was just no distinction or understanding that there's a separate category that of tools that is necessary to kind of like think about what else is going on outside of the application that is still necessary for the application to run, especially at enterprise scale.
Yeah. And thanks for highlighting that. I think it's been a journey that, Red Hat and both Portworx have been on for years, helping enterprise customers run these containerized apps in mission critical form, right? And the experiences that those apps deliver, whether they are mobile apps or web apps, still have the requirements that you mentioned, which make them, very enterprise grade. And while the objects are so different that they require specialized tools like OpenShift and things like that, but the capabilities that they need still bring in the classic enterprise grade requirements. And we'll talk about that, Johnny. But thank you for talking about why you built this MarketScape to educate enterprises who are going through that journey in putting containers in production, right? And thank you for going through that.
Yeah. So I have a question for you and Stu though. And so like I'm obviously like the MarketScape's published, and we're looking forward now at what the next trends are and what customers are looking for. Now that we're out of the earliest days of containers, I guess, because I still feel like we're in early days. So my question to you is, with the whole topic of this webinar is modernization. So I'm curious, like, what your perspective is on how your customers are approaching modernization. Like, are there any patterns to like what they're asking for? Like any sort of frequent roadblocks that they're running into, and how are you guys addressing them?
Yeah, so Johnny, I'll start. If we look at what we did at Red Hat with OpenShift, containers, awesome, cool technology. Kubernetes, we've had, massive adoption over the last 10 years. Hard to believe it's 10 years now in here. But it wasn't enough. When I hear what you were talking about some of the challenges out there, it reminds me of every other wave of technology I've seen in my career. Cloud adoption. Wait, I still need to think about security. I still need to think about things like, data protection. Yeah. I go back, over 20 years in virtual machines, and like, oh my God, like I've got still some of the, psychic scars from all of these storage and networking challenges that took us over a decade to solve, to go from saying, wait, this is good for a test environment, to I'm actually going to run production workloads in this environment. OpenShift, we've been doing from day one was to run your, production, your enterprise workloads in production. And what are some of the challenges there? You highlighted them real well. Why are we here with Portworx? Because when I go into containerization, well, storage is a major consideration there, and it doesn't solve things like, my backup and disaster recovery and the like. There are certain changes that we go through. We often call them, cloud native architectures, because I used to build things with very much a hardware centric HA environment, and nothing will ever fail, as opposed to you go to a cloud native architecture and it's like, no, we want to do more microservices architecture and software, where I've built resiliency into things so that we expect everything to fail, but that doesn't mean that the application fails itself. So that for me was the big mind flip as to a hardware world versus a software world. And we almost never even say it anymore, because, software is eating the world and open source is the default deployment for how we do applications. But that's where we are. But to the point that you have, Johnny, we are still, we've got customers that have been working with us for almost those 10 years that we've had Kubernetes environment. nobody is ever done. This journey is always ongoing. Most customers have hundreds or thousands of applications, and unfortunately, we know in IT, like nothing ever dies. I'm still meeting with customers that have mainframe environments, have Unix environments. We're of course the leader in Linux there, but it's what are my applications? What are my workloads? Where have I moved forward? Because what I want to do, I want to be able to react to my customers faster. I want to be able to take advantage of new technologies. How are you already 10 minutes in and nobody said AI? So, those sort of things, are absolutely front and center. Every company that I meet with now is I need to understand how this affects my business. And if I haven't built the architectures that are scalable, resilient, adaptable for those kind of environments, I can't take advantage of it. So job one is always I need to modernize my platform. And that's what we're here talking about. And Red Hat and Portworx have been working a long time. And Portworx was like one of the earliest leaders in that cloud native architecture. And that's why we've had such a strong partnership.
Yeah, very well said, Stu. I'll just kind of chime in as well, and bring some customer examples here, right? But just to remind everyone here, Portworx, in one sentence, right, is a partner to help customers and enterprises automate, protect, and unify all of their containerized workloads from a storage standpoint, bring in that container data management platform to enterprises, right? And the way Portworx was developed was always thinking about the customer first, but the customer here is the developer teams, right? And we are really in service of platform engineering teams who provide this service, whether it's OpenShift or storage or all of the other pieces of the stack, as Stu mentioned, to their developer teams to build that next modern app, right? And so we have designed a few things, right, which help customers with certain problems. And I'll kind of bring the example of a large financial bank in the US. I can't name them for obvious reasons, but essentially they are coming from a data protection angle, right? Johnny, you mentioned how it's important to have compliance and copies and going through that process of replicating clusters within multiple regions and even making sure you're complying with the IT policies of your company and security policies of your company. To do that, you need specialized tools, right? The traditional backup and VM-based backup tools don't really work for the container world, right? And so to repeat that process in a self-service way with just a few clicks is something that Portworx was able to help that bank with, and they are also an OpenShift customer. And I'll mention the example of Ford, which is a public reference for us jointly. Also, their experience was that they were deploying OpenShift in a hybrid multi-cloud manner, too, as you mentioned, and essentially the challenge for them from a storage perspective that we helped them with, and we continue to help them with, was not just this massive scale at which they were deploying Kubernetes and also the underlying storage to build the apps for their factory automation, but also to deliver a unified storage layer across those heterogeneous environments in a hybrid cloud world, right? And delivering that common storage automation layer, irrespective of what storage you have on-prem or in the cloud, was something that Portworx helped them with. And then, of course, on top of that, similar customers like Johnson Controls, who also leverage our disaster recovery capabilities, right? And so, these requirements we were so used to delivering to customers. All of us have lived through the VMware era, right? But they do keep coming back when enterprises are running containers in a mission critical manner, right? I think the applications are so crucial to delivering revenue or a great customer experience or solving an operational efficiency for organizations that they can't compromise on this few aspects of, hey, reliability of this platform needs to be 4 nines, and the underlying infrastructure needs to be able to cope up with that and also deliver that experience at massive scale, right? Without compromising, again, the efficiency and productivity of the developer teams who are building these apps. So I think that's really the joint mission we are both on, Red Hat and Portworx, and we're glad to be on that journey.
Yeah. A point I want to add to that too is what you had mentioned about what Portworx is doing with these applications is the entire, I would say the entire like container data management category, one of their main missions, every tool that fits under that category, one of their main missions is to kind of allow companies to do all of the things that they've been doing with their, with their applications, their, I guess we would call them legacy applications now, because we're all talking about modernization. Like all those things that I could do with those applications from an administrative standpoint, I can't use those same tools to do them for containerized applications. So what tools are there that, replace that, Because if I'm going to be going from, if I'm going to be making that journey from refactoring my legacy applications to containerized applications, I'm modernizing, like I shouldn't be losing anything, right? So it's like, what are the tools that'll help me, be able to do the same things that I've been doing for modernized applications for those legacy applications, but now for the now modernized applications. And I think you bring up a good point about like, that's what Portworx does.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, folks are able to, recover with just a few clicks. As easy as it is to back up, you could, run a script, or you could just click the restore button, and, irrespective of where those OpenShift clusters or other Kubernetes clusters are running, you could use the Portworx tool and just restore the copy anywhere you want. And that's kind of something we've been fortunate to be on the journey with Red Hat on.
Yeah. So I've been hearing this term going around because we are talking about that journey from virtualization to containerization, and so the term I'm talking about is modern virtualization, because it sounds like this is some kind of a go-between. So I'm curious what you guys are how you guys, I guess, like define modern virtualization.
Yeah, so Johnny, I'll start. So it's interesting. If you talked to me a year or two ago, our journey would have been, hey, this is the way you did things in a VM world. You need to come to the new world because it's wonderful and unicorns and all your DevOps things will be fantastic.
Hmm.
Well, there's some things that have happened in the industry that have made a near-term customers saying, I need to move fast and I don't necessarily have time to modernize first. So after many, many years of talking about modernization, we've had a very close focus on some of the migration aspects, because we can actually get many of the things that you want in a modern architecture with still being in a virtual machine. So that's bringing virtual machines into your modern environment. So that's really what modern virtualization is. So when you bring a VM over, so as you said, you don't want to lose functionality. So like, hey, I have a VM, I used to do vMotion. Oh, now I do live migration. Does that look pretty much like what it was? Yeah. All the magic that we all know of like moving between servers. Yeah, we can do that. However, there's also things in the modern world because, hey, I bring a VM into the Kubernetes environment. Now it's just a pod, just like my containers. Oh, well, hey, my team's been talking to me how they love pipelines and they're doing these cool things like GitOps and everything like that. Wait, I can do that with a VM? Yes, you can. And there is a difference because some of these things, oh, well, I used to just go in my portal of choice on my hypervisor and I knew how everything worked. Well, it's a little bit different terminology, and sometimes it's not a one-to-one, but this feature is now broken up into a couple of other features that do similar things, or, storage is different. There's a reason why, Pure Portworx, why Red Hat bought CoreOS and a number of other companies to help in this modern world. So we can give you more functionality and we can bring your VMs into the environment. There's certain applications and certain workloads you're going to keep them there for the next 5 or 10 years. I mean, as I mentioned before, some things never die, but you can take that modernization journey on the pace that makes sense for you. So VMs and containers and even serverless containers all living together, in a world where you can have now a more consistent way of managing all of these environments, and whether that's in your data center, in the public cloud. One of the great things about our partnership with Portworx is it's not just, oh, this is the storage that I have in my data center, but our solution that we have with AWS, Portworx ties into that because that's what customers need, that consistency in the data center, in the cloud, in the edge. And these modern architectures are built more for that. We're moving a lot faster than we did in the 20 years of the virtual machine era.
Fully second that, Stu. I think it's been quite an interesting last couple of years as customers are, truly actually looking at modern virtualization. It was something that, Red Hat, you guys, I mean, Stu, began with the KubeVirt project so many more years ago. I forget now, 7 or 8 years since KubeVirt was born.
Yeah.
And it is really coming up in a lot of customer conversations, Johnny. So we are very much tied with Red Hat on building the joint solution and bringing capabilities from a storage perspective to help customers with that migration. Now, of course, as Stu mentioned, this is not a flip of a switch type of a solution. You don't just go from running all your VMs in a production workload and the databases like SAP and Oracle that run inside them to migrating them to containers overnight, right? But OpenShift has tools where you could do assessment of, what kind of workloads make sense to move to containerization, right? And what are the performance and efficiency trade-offs that I have to look at, and when does the ROI make sense? And we're doing the same assessment with joint customers, and guiding them through this crawl, walk, run approach as they adopt modern virtualization with Portworx and Red Hat. And
Yeah.
we just announced a joint partnership at Red Hat Summit this year, but our product teams have been working on the solution for about 2 years now, knowing that this moment would come. And fortunately, we have seen a huge uptick in this early phase of modern virtualization. We were still learning a lot together. Our teams are tied to the hip, whether it's the customer success teams, engineering teams, product management teams, or the go-to-market teams, helping customers through this journey.
Yeah, Rajiv, I just wanted to emphasize what we were saying there is we all knew this moment was coming. We've helped with modernization for years. The migration piece, we've all been figuring out how do we accelerate this even faster. So automated tools that, can look at your environment and be like, hey, 60% of your environment, green light, let's go. 20% of your environment, hey, here's a couple of concerns. Oh, wait, Portworx solves a bunch of the things that you were looking at then. And then oh, here's the 10% that, dragons beware, might want to take a little bit longer to make sure you do a deeper dive assessment to understand. And some of those applications you're going to keep. Some of these applications you're going to be like, hey, there's some other way for me to solve this problem. Because what's interesting is when we engage with customers, a customer that is motivated, we've not found any blockers. It's that, there's always technical hurdles that we as an industry need to overcome, but we've got years of building this ecosystem. Over the last 12 months, we've had over 135% growth of our OpenShift virtualization customers, and our VM growth has actually been up like 175%. So massive growth. And what's good is for all the customers that are coming in now that haven't taken a good look at it, luckily we've got, lots of customers that have gone down this journey before, so we can do it faster with you and with our both our technology partners and our go-to-market partners.
Totally agree. No, great point. I think there's great momentum right now with the preparation both engineering teams have done, and I think you mentioned it really brilliantly, Stu. I think I will just add one thing. When customers do this assessment and kind of go through this migration, they absolutely go through the same kind of questions, right? And they say, you know what, I might probably need a different configuration that I'm used to, and a node density of VMs and things like that. And when the ROI makes sense and the teams come together, both the sort of the VMware teams and the cloud native teams or the platform engineering teams, and use this guidance and assessment based approach, we have seen success stories here. So I think I'm very encouraged with the progress, and certainly looking to sort of help as many enterprises through this journey. And also in situations where we have jointly said, what, that part of the estate which requires these massive performance and scale requirements that we are not ready to meet today, just wait, and no need to touch that escape. You have these 4 options that Pure offers customers, right? One is stay with VMware, right? If the apps make sense, if the ROI makes sense, and you're running your business on it, there's no need to disrupt it. But when you do the assessments of, hey, I want to move these VMs to the cloud or to the container platforms, go through that journey with us, and we'll help you migrate. And in many cases too, as you mentioned, that portion of the estate is actually pretty encouraging.
And Rajiv, I like that you brought up like some of these like some of these applications that need, really high performance infrastructure in the background to, make sure that they're always running, because, that sounds like a critical application. And that's kind of like the next step of like, taking containers seriously is like, how do I run mission critical, business critical applications in containers, and still be able to hit their very, very stringent SLAs. And there's I know you guys have posted a spotlight paper that IC has written about like a joint solution that can bring it to life. But the point is like, you need a joint solution like that. This isn't something that, oh, I can kind of take what I'm using to run my run those critical applications currently in their virtualized form, and like, just lift and shift and everything will still work. It's like there's a little bit of tweaking and to get it to get it to work to that point.
You're absolutely right. Sorry, go ahead. I was
Yeah, and I was going to say that this kind of goes back to your point about the crawl, walk, and run, and how this joint solution with Red Hat and Portworx kind of removing the all or nothingness that Stu was kind of describing with like, this is everything that takes place in the VM world. This is what everything that takes place in the containerized world, and you kind of there's that barrier in between them. And part of modernization is figuring out, all right, which bucket am I going to put these applications on? And now there's kind of a deadline on like how quickly do we have to figure that out. But when you're talking about your modern virtualization, where you can kind of put them all on the same platform, then it's like, well, that deadline's kind of gone now, because you can kind of move at your own pace. Like maybe you did have plans, 3 or 10 year plans even, I don't know, to like eventually convert some of these applications from virtualized to containers. But now there's no, I guess, pressure to really kind of make that decision and make that refactor happen now, because if you're putting them all on that same platform, then you kind of like, bought yourself some time. And I think that's a big deal, being able to not have to commit to a decision, right away. And I think we've had two really recent pivot points or historical points where we've noticed that people have rushed in and immediately regretted it. Like we saw it with cloud, where people decide to cloudify everything and then realize that they're not actually saving money and in fact costing them more. So they've, had to pull things back down. And then we see it in containers with the IDC study that I was referencing, where, more than half of the respondents said they're pulling it back or refactoring more than half of their stuff because they had been told, hey, containerize these applications, you're going to reap so many benefits, it's going to be great. And then they're not actually realizing those benefits because, they kind of took a scattershot approach because, there's just a better way, a smarter way to go about this. And by not being under the pressure to like, make to accelerate that journey as quickly as they can, they have the time they need to kind of like make those decisions, make the smart decisions for each application's like, am I actually going to reap any benefits from making this conversion, and kind of do it on a app by app basis. And as things change within their own organizations, like, be able to adapt to that over time. And I think that's a big deal.
I think so. I'm so glad you mentioned that spotlight. It reminds me of the work, the three of us did a year ago, because, what we really did, folks, I would encourage every viewer to download that IDC spotlight. We took a best practices approach with Red Hat and IDC to sort of recommend to enterprises, the steps they can take to bring VM workloads into containers, because we know how important requirements like HA, DR are for these workloads, right? Customers have been used to these vSphere and vSAN based features over decades, right? And these workloads have very, very mission critical performance and scalability type requirements that run the apps that these businesses depend on. Their revenue literally depends on these businesses. If those VMs fail, which they won't, because they've been architected that way, it can mean billions of dollars in losses for customers. And so we've had to take that best practices approach to guide customers to bring these VMs and make sure those requirements are kept and those SLAs are met when they move them into OpenShift with Portworx. And, folks, thank you again for joining us. What we wanted to leave you all with are all of these best practices from Red Hat, from IDC, and Portworx to help your organizations with this journey, right? And whether you're on the app modernization journey or you're going towards this hot topic of modern virtualization with us, there's a ton of resources and labs and assets we've built to help you there. So Stu, why don't you start to talk about some resources and how these customers can engage with us?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Rajiv, thanks so much for having me on the program. And Johnny, great to hear from you and the research. From the Red Hat standpoint, the top link here is a new site that we launched recently, really focused on that migration. So includes not only the solution set that we have from Red Hat, but many of the ecosystem pieces that we talked about. So of course, Portworx is highlighted in the storage and the data protection. And the second one is actually a roadshow that we kicked off last year, specifically targeted for administrators of virtual machines. So as we talked about, there is a change from the way you did things to the way you want to do things, because, to a point that Johnny said, if you do things the way that you used to do them on a new technology, oftentimes you're going to fail. That's why we saw so many people with cloud and with containers in the early days. If they didn't understand the technology and what it takes to go there. This workshop, something we've been doing regionally, as well as for certain enterprise companies, we've done them for them specifically. And it's only a 4-hour hands-on environment. Not only have we been doing these in the virtualization workshops, but we also have something called Red Hat Summit Connect, which are global events happening, regionally, where it's a couple dozen or a couple hundred people at the event, and we have hands-on labs for them too. So nothing is better than actually getting your hands on the technology. And trust me, if you've been working in VMs, if you have a couple of hours to get your hands on this technology, either at the roadshow, one of the Summit Connects, or go into one of our online labs, you're going to feel confident that you can take advantage of this and you'll be ready for this modern environment in short time.
Yep. And I'd just like to add to that, and it's also linked here as well, the IDC Spotlight paper that we had talked about earlier about just what it takes to be able to run critical applications on modernized infrastructure. So this is going to be for those companies that want to kind of take containers to that next level, where you're able to run business and mission critical applications on highly performant infrastructure. There's a nice little spotlight paper there that'll kind of, I guess the best way to describe it is give all the highlights to what that infrastructure would look like, and how you would actually try to build that solution, and just how different that is from trying to do that for your traditional virtualized infrastructure.
Thank you, Johnny. And from Portworx's standpoint, we have the joint solution page between Red Hat and Portworx, where we talk about how we help with these enterprise-grade storage capabilities for all OpenShift customers, right? And so you can visit that page if you're a decision maker or a practitioner. And then, as Stu mentioned, we also have a hands-on lab where you can try all of our product capabilities in action through a guided experience, and actually bring these capabilities to OpenShift clusters. And on top of that, I know many of you like to see reference architectures. We have just published one for the modern virtualization solution between Red Hat and Portworx, and you can download that as well in this webinar. So again, this has been a very, very fun talk. Thank you, Stu and Johnny, for joining us. And I look forward to do a lot more of these. And of course, it's time to get busy helping customers with app modernization and modern virtualization. Thank you all for joining us.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Awesome. Thank you so much to the teams here at Portworx and Red Hat. just being able to hear the way you all interact gives some further insight to the information at hand. I do want to remind all of you out there in the audience to visit the handout section to get the resources outlined by the speakers today, as we are about to wrap things up, so do not sleep on those. If you did ask any questions in the chat today that went unanswered, do not worry. The teams here will also be following up with you after the webinar and making sure you get any specific information you were seeking. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Portworx by Pure Storage for making this webinar possible. And especially, I want to thank our incredible speakers, Rajiv, Stu, and Johnny, once again, who have given us so much to think about. And hey, sending high fives and special thank yous to all of you with us here today for making this event possible as well. I know sometimes it can be difficult to stop and lift our heads up from the day-to-day of it all, and the detailed planning and implementation of container data management can definitely be a challenge to take on. That said, with the tools and intel today that you probably learned, you are less likely to feel that it is daunting, and you're definitely going to feel better than when you came in today. So I know I've learned a lot, and this session has been super informative for me, and I hope it has been the same for all of you. And I hope you're feeling kind of lit up and ready to take some next steps at your organization. And with that, folks, I believe that is everything for today. I look forward to seeing you all at another webinar again soon. And until then, I'm wishing you an absolutely magical rest of your days. Take care, everyone.